All right. Welcome, everybody, and good morning. Another episode of Legend Sports and Amplify, and we're talking baseball history, uh, minor league history, Negro League history, card collecting, card art, all the stories to put things into context and perspective. And I am really, really happy this morning to have on former Major League Baseball player agent Jeff Frye. How you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing good, Philip. How are you, bud?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for taking the time. This is going to be a lot of fun. There's so much that I would love to talk to you about. I could probably talk to you about baseball all day, but I know you got some time. I'm glad you're taking some time out of your day to do this. This is going to be a lot of fun. So, you know, I like to tell the origin stories and give some context to things. And I think it's important, especially when we're talking, some of the issues that come up a lot in sports, recently especially. Um, and so, I think what you've got going on, and we'll talk about that, in a few minutes, but has really, started to shine some light on some things that's going on with baseball, and we'll get your takes on those. But first, I wanted to get your origin story because I was telling you before we got on here, my dad was a huge Red Sox fan, and the reason why was he gets out of the Army after World War II, and Scranton was a Class C or D affiliate for the Red Sox back in the 40s and into the 50s, I think. And so he became a Red Sox fan. And there were some players who came through there that were fantastic. Bobby Doerr. I think Ted Williams even played there one time when he was hurt and made some stops. A lot of really great Red Sox historical players. But when you came to the Red Sox, the first thing he told me was, man, he reminds me of Johnny Pesky, which I thought was very, very cool. Pretty good compliment. So your story though, you came through with the Rangers at first. You played baseball in Oklahoma. How'd you wind up in Oklahoma? You were born in California, right?
Yeah, that's a crazy story. Well, when I was in, I think seventh or eighth grade, I lived with my mom and my stepfather and stepbrother and sister. And my stepfather was not a very good guy, and was, you know, abusive to my mom and stuff. And so I moved out and moved in with my grandparents, and lived with them for about 3 years. And my grandfather was deteriorating, and he was bedridden, and it was really wearing out my grandmother taking care of him. So my aunt and Uncle Chess and Aunt Carol, lived down the street, a couple blocks away, and they decided my uncle just retired from working for the city of Hayward, and decided they were going to move back to Oklahoma, where he was from. So they decided they were taking my grandparents with them, and there I had to make a decision whether or not to move to Oklahoma or move back into a pretty volatile situation at home,
Mm-hmm.
with my mom and stepdad. So I decided to take the leap and move to Oklahoma, a town of 2,000 people, with my aunt and uncle,
Wow.
grandma and grandpa, four cousins, all girls. We loaded up the truck and drove to Oklahoma.
Wow. I mean, that's why I think talking about these things is great because people, fans especially, they kind of lose perspective that you guys, players, professional athletes, you guys are human beings. You're not just numbers on a box score or in standings and everything else. You all have stories and what made you you and how you got to where you're at. There's a lot of hard work and perseverance and that's the kind of stories that I really enjoy hearing, because it's not just all about one day you woke up and you were good enough to play in Major League Baseball. It took a lot of hard work to get there.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't that for me in my situation. It was, there was some, I was surrounded by love from a lot of people, but it was just not the good environment for me to be. And so I mean, it was a blessing that I decided to move to Oklahoma.
Yeah, those are decisions that I'm sure a lot of people can relate to for sure. I mean, um, and so the hard work, right, that I'm sure you had to go through, and all of the other issues involved with getting to where you're at. That's the kind of perspective and context that I think people need to understand. And you're one of only what 20,000 players or so who were talented enough and hardworking enough and overcame, I'm sure all kinds of things, injuries and setbacks and disappointments and whatnot along the way to finally make it to Major League Baseball. You even know your number, right? I saw you put that out there, right?
But I think it's changed, Philip. I think
Yeah, probably
they've
does.
finally credited the Negro Leagues
Oh, that's right. So it'll be a little bit
with being
more.
professional in the
That's right.
major leagues. I think that the numbers have actually changed.
So yeah, maybe it's more like 24,000 now. Probably is probably where it gets to. But still, when you think about that as a percent of population, and I was trying to come up with some way to calculate that, but it's probably into like the 0.00007 to 10 decimal points of people who have ever had that, not just that ability, but the fortitude to get to where you got to. I mean, it's an accomplishment. And I was telling you before we got on here, one of the things that kind of bothers me a little bit when I read stories and I hear people saying about this player stinks and that the team is terrible. I don't know. It's a difficult sport. And what's that saying? I think was it Ted Williams about you got to take a round ball and a round bat and hit it square kind of thing.
Yep.
And so it is not easy. And I can only imagine. I mean, it's not for the faint of heart. Pitchers are throwing hard. The ball is moving with incredible amount of movement. You have split seconds to decide. It's not something that everybody has the ability to do, and I applaud you guys that get there. I will never tell you that you guys stink. I can tell you that. Maybe you're not playing well at the time. So, but yeah, no, to get where you're at is just pretty impressive. And so your journey along the way, when you finally got to the major leagues, you were there for 10 seasons. But two of them you missed because of injury, right? What happened there?
Well, the first one, after my rookie year in '92 with the Rangers, I was up about just over, I think, around 2/3 of the season. That off season, I tore my ACL playing basketball.
Oh
We used
man.
to play basketball all the time. Me and Darren Oliver and Kenny Rogers and Rick Helling. That was kind of our cardio. And
Oh,
so we were whooping up on some guys, and these guys took me out on a layup, and I came down awkwardly, and my knee popped.
oh boy.
Went to the doctor next day and found out I tore ACL. The second one, so I missed the whole season that year. The second one was in spring training with the Red Sox. I just signed a 3-year contract in the first week of spring training, doing first and third defensive situations. I ran across the field and was going to cut Darren Bragg back to third base, and he spun around backwards, and I went to plant, and my knee exploded,
Oh boy.
my other knee. And so I was
Your other
immediately
knee.
out for the whole year that year too. So those are 2 years I missed.
Man, oh man, I'll tell you what. And then how do you get back? I mean, what is that like trying to get back to the playing level you were at? Did you ever get back to you? Did you feel you ever got back after that injury to where you thought you were, where you were?
Yeah, I think the first one, I think I got better. I got faster. The second one was a little bit more difficult. I was a little bit older, but I still think I got back to a pretty high level. And fortunately, to this day, I mean, I don't have any problems with my knees, knock on wood. But it's tough when you sign a 3-year contract going into the season. 2 years prior, I was in AAA fighting for my life, and then I come up to Boston and have a good season and 2/3, and then they sign me, and now I'm in a good position as the leadoff hitter and starting second baseman for the Red Sox.
Mm-hmm.
And the weekend of spring training, I tear my ACL.
Boy, oh
So that
boy.
was tough.
Boy, oh boy. Yeah, I think those are the things that people, when you're just looking at numbers in a box score on a piece of paper, you miss these things. That's a lot of stress, a lot of effort that is put on guys. Every single day. I mean, you look at a pitcher. I mean, literally, probably every single time they throw a pitch, you just never know what can
Yeah.
what can happen out there. Um, so you are after you got out of baseball, you got into you're a player agent now, right?
Yes, sir.
So what can you tell us about? I mean, what made you get into that? And it has something to do a little bit, I think, with your own story, right?
Yeah, and actually, a friend of mine had been a sports agent for a few years for Scott Boris, and he suggested that we start our own sports agency. And I really didn't know if I wanted to do that. I knew I wanted to stay in the game, but I knew I didn't want to get into scouting or coaching because I've been gone so much. And so it seemed like a good opportunity. We started our own company, and at the end of my career, I felt like my agent kind of bailed on me, and he was too busy to help me find a job. And I was like, wait a minute, the last 9 years I've been paying you money, commissions every year.
Uh-huh.
You weren't too busy for me. And now all of a sudden that I need a job, you got other things to do. And I was like, if I became an agent, I vowed that I would not do that to players. And so I just felt like I was kind of done wrong, and I wanted to show that that's not how you're supposed to treat guys.
I absolutely. I mean, I could only imagine being hung out to dry a little bit. Yeah, that would not be a good feeling. So you got to be because you're part of all that world behind the scenes, involved a little bit with some knowledge of what's coming up on the horizon here, because there's another collective bargaining agreement that is going on here, and is that right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
what's your thoughts on that? I mean, is there going to be a problem here?
There could be. There could be. I think the players are in a very strong position right now because I think with all the negativity that's being directed toward Rob Manfred, and a lot of the things that are going on in the game with the rule changes, and I think the players are in a strong position, but they're going to have to stand their ground. And um, I mean, this could be the nuclear winter we've been hearing about for a while, and I hope it's
Yeah.
not. It doesn't make sense. Everybody's making a lot of money, but they need to, let I don't know, calmer heads prevail and maybe come up with some solutions to what I think are a lot of problems going on in the game. And it all starts, in my opinion, with the commissioner.
And so let's talk about some of these things, because you've got, I'm sure, a lot of I've read them. You've got a lot of thoughts on what's going on, and it goes right on down to the very bottom levels of the sport, and it's interesting because I coached high school baseball. I coached for many, many years. I also coached youth baseball and so forth, right? And you probably would appreciate this. My brother and I, when we were coaching um, youth baseball especially, we used to scout the parents as much as we scouted
Right.
the kids. And the reason why, you probably know why, right? Uh, we didn't want to have any kind of, I don't want to say issues, right? But because these are kids, we're talking between the ages of 8, 9, 10, up to hitting into high school, and they are just kids, and they should be having fun. But we didn't want the parents. We wanted the parents who were going to let us do our thing and try to teach their kids how to play the game of baseball, have a little bit of fun. And so I would be scouting the kids, and he would be scouting the parents, and we would compare notes after we were done. But one of the things about what's going on today that I see, I'm sure you do as well, that it seems like it's become like a pay to play kind of thing when it comes to youth sports. When all the travel ball teams and the cost involved, and when I was a kid, and my brother was the same way, we would go to any field we could find that was an empty lot and we would just play. And when we left the house in the morning on a Saturday, when we got back, as long as it was not too dark or just getting dark, my parents didn't know what we were doing, but we were on a field somewhere playing all day long. And it seems like that is being lost with kids.
I
So,
agree. I agree. We were the same way. It was as soon as we got up, we went outside and tried to determine if we are going to play with a tennis ball, a wiffle ball, if we broke the wiffle ball the day before, if there were cars parked in the street where we normally play, we had to find a different field, if we could hook up with our buddies, and it was all day long
yep,
playing until it was time to come in for dinner.
that's right.
And the same thing, a lot of times my grandmother didn't know where we were, but she knew we were, it was different times, but she knew we were out there doing something, playing a sport of some type.
Hmm.
And, I don't think you see that anymore. The kids are all preoccupied with their video games and their cell phones, and everybody's worried nowadays that,
Yeah,
where's my kids? And, they're always worried about where they're at. And I think that's hurting the game because not as many kids are wanting to play it like we did. We didn't have the other distractions or other opportunities to do things that they're all doing now.
that's true. Yeah.
Thank goodness we didn't. I'm glad we didn't.
Yeah, I didn't have a computer until I would hit in the 80s and I was in college, I mean, I didn't have any of this stuff. I mean, so yeah, it is a different world for sure. And the other thing too, I mean, you said you grew up it was a small town, right? I grew up, it was only, 5, 6, 7,000 people. And everybody knew everybody's business pretty much, right? So you couldn't get away with anything anyway. Even if you were out there and gone all day, by the time you got home, anything that you might have done got there before you did. So
Absolutely.
it's a little different. It's a little different perspective when it comes to that. So the other thing I know that you have some thoughts on too, and it's interesting, right? Because like I said, there's context is important in perspective. So contraptions have been around for a long, long time. I don't know if John Thorne is the Major League Baseball historian, official historian. He puts out things on Twitter and other places. And so he put out a couple of times in the last couple of weeks things that going back to the 1800s, 1900s, like the baseball curver. It was this thing you put in your hand and it help you learn how to pitch, like throw a curve like the pros kind of thing. And
Mhm.
so, there are so many people out there now that I mean, a lot of them seem like they're doing a little bit of grift in here, but that have got these contraptions, and you've kind of highlighted some of those, which are hysterical in your videos. What's your thoughts on the gurus and the contraptions that are floating around out there today?
I think it's comical. I think it's comical, especially when most of these guys never played at
Yeah.
any significant level of the sport. And you mentioned earlier in our conversation that these guys that never played professionally are telling guys who played in the major leagues that they stunk.
Mm-hmm. Come on.
It's like, okay, well, I stunk good enough to play in the major leagues for almost 10 years. So,
Mm-hmm.
I'll take that to the bank. But,
Yep.
I think a lot of it it's just a scam.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys are trying to convince parents, which are a lot of the parents are pretty naive into believing that if you want to be a major leaguer, you have to use all these contraptions
Yep.
and you have to try and hit different than guys did for the last 150 years because the game has changed. And I mean, it's hurting kids' development, in my opinion, because, one of my biggest problems on social media is a guy named Richard Shank, who's a teacher man, right? He's the self-proclaimed hitting expert.
Mm-hmm.
That the only people that teach hitting the right way are him and the people that he's taught.
Right.
And he's a 65-year-old pool hall owner who was sucked in college.
Mm-hmm.
So why should we believe that this guy has found the secret to hitting because he happened to work with Aaron Judge one off season?
Mm-hmm.
Aaron Judge, didn't come off the scrap heap.
Right.
Aaron Judge is the first round draft pick who's 6'7", or 6'8", 275 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure this guy would have figured it out with or without the help of the pool hall owner.
Mm-hmm.
And now all of a sudden there's all these other guys that are trying to teach this this swing up thing, and I mean, I think it's comedy.
Yeah, it's interesting like what you said about today with the fact that you've got all this social media and computers and cell phones and everybody's connected. Um, it's kind of driving a mindset of kind of the instant gratification kind of thing, or the short circuiting of the hard work. Everybody thinks that there's like a magic pill or some kind of magic diagram I'm going to read that's going to make me uh, bigger, stronger, faster, smarter, whatever. And I think what you said before, right? That's the mindset that people think they need to have these things. Otherwise, I'm missing the boat. My kids are going to fall behind, and I don't know. Let them play. Let them go out and have fun and enjoy the sport. It's why I really like the minor leagues so much. I worked when I first got out of college. I was working for the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Red Barons, the AAA team for the Phillies up in Northeast PA, and we um, we always would have we had a great fan base like many minor league cities do, and people enjoyed it because it's affordable and it's a good time and you get to see a high level of play, and I don't think like we talked a little bit about the Negro Leagues. The minor leagues, the Negro Leagues, the barnstorming, all of those things that played into spreading the baseball brand all around the country. And now today, to every small town, everywhere. And now today, you've got major league cities that are blacking out games, and you can't watch the teams that are in your own market. And I think that's a big factor as to why there's less people that are maybe intrigued with Major League Baseball as they used to be.
I agree. It seems unfortunately like a lot of things in our lives these days. It's all about money, and it's I think they're missing the boat that when there's not enough people to play this sport anymore,
Mm-hmm.
these guys aren't going to be making money anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I remember when I grew up, you basically had two options to watch baseball: TBS or CNN or WGN. The
Mm-hmm.
Braves or the Cubs, and then me being a California kid, I could watch the A's and the Giants on local TV. But now, there's 30 games or 15 games a day,
Mm-hmm.
and why these private networks are blacking out games in their home cities
Mm-hmm.
just because they're trying to get people to pay to watch instead of it used to be free to watch. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's hurting the fan base. There's no question about it. How can
Mm-hmm.
it not?
Yeah, absolutely. Growing up in Northeast PA, like I said, boy, oh boy, we had games on from New York, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Boston, Baltimore. We were able to buy. It didn't really matter, and like you said, it was all part of your television package. And now, boy, oh boy, uh, besides the cost of a game, now you got to, pay to watch it. Yeah, I think they need to do some more things to get people more interested in it. They need to start from the ground up, from the lower levels on up, make it fun. The Players Alliance, I think, is a pretty cool thing. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. That's trying to get the game back into the inner cities,
Hmm.
and those types of initiatives. Are there any other things like that that you know of that are going on in baseball, that Major League Baseball or any organization might be involved in?
Not really. I mean, I know they have it seems like we spend a lot more money in South America and all over the world than we do in our own
Yeah,
country.
right?
And we have a few places around the United States, inner cities where they're trying to get these kids to play. And those are good, but we need more of it. And, instead of building, $25 million complexes in the Dominican and Venezuela and Puerto Rico, why don't we do some more things at home and get
Yeah.
our own kids? I mean, this is our national pastime,
Hmm. Yeah, it's
right?
interesting. Interesting what you said. I went to the Dominican a couple of years ago, and of course I had to go see a game because all you hear about is Dominican baseball, and it was a blast. I mean, it was really was a good time. But one thing I can tell you, just everybody there is so tuned into baseball. I mean, my wife is from Guadalajara originally, so my kids are bilingual. She's bilingual. I'm getting there, but I'm not there yet. I understand it. Speaking it, I'm a little more cautious. But when I was there, it didn't matter how much English they might have known, the cab driver or the shuttle driver or not. You could start talking baseball, and it's just like what we were talking about growing up. We would drive around, and there were kids in dust, sand lots, no grass even on these fields, playing baseball, and it was like kind of what I remembered as a kid growing up. I mean, and that's why they're already in that pipeline from barely able to walk. They're already playing baseball, and they're not on their cell phone, and they're not. And then you look around and you wonder why these kids are coming out and coming into the game here and having some success because they know how to play the game. That's for sure.
And you don't see their parents hovering over them, watching every move they make, like you do
Right.
here in the States. But,
Right.
you can't have a baseball practice for a 10U team without 4 or 5 parents standing around yelling, "Get your elbow up!
Uh,
Look in the coach! Get in front of the ball!" Just these parents are in
yeah.
the United States. The parents are a big problem.
Yeah. Anybody who's out there coaching, scout the parents.
Yeah, it's just they're ruining sports. They're just putting too much pressure on these kids.
Hmm.
And I wish they would take the time to see. Um, First off, everybody's chasing the D1 scholarship,
Right.
and when you realize that the average they only have 11.7 scholarships for a whole program, unless you're Vanderbilt,
Hmm.
um, and then you have to spread that out over 27 players,
Hmm.
and then so you've got 38 to
Wow.
40% um, is a good scholarship. That means you got to pay 60%,
Hmm.
and then the odds of them playing professional baseball are so slim
Hmm.
that I wish they would just let their kids play and have fun and realize that if your kid wants it and works at it,
Hmm.
he might someday get the opportunity. But the odds are so against you that you're better off just letting them play and have fun. And I think parents need to do a little research on that stuff.
Yeah, and I think what it makes them better. It makes them better players with maybe a better chance to get that scholarship or at least have an opportunity to play somewhere when they actually are. They have some knowledge of the of the game, not just the repetition of some of the the like we talked about the contraptions and the gurus have you doing. I mean, I get it. Yes, there's you need to have that repetition. I mean, there are things that you need to do in order to make yourself a better player. However, that's not the entire game. You have to play the game because the beauty of baseball to me is there's no time limit. The game's not over until the other team makes it over if you're at bat, and vice versa. You have got to get the final out, and I think that's what makes it so much fun because there's not some clock that somebody's trying to milk and you calling all these timeouts, and it is up to you to make the game over or not, and um, you know situations that are going on in the game are changing all the time, as you well know, between counts and situational, the base runners that are going on, and um, if the if a fan goes to a game and doesn't appreciate those, I'm not sure why you're there really. I mean, what kills me is fans going to a game and they're already like planning as they sit down. All right, we got to leave by the sixth inning. Because it's like, why did you bother to go? That's the whole fun of baseball, is the fact that I never want to leave. When I go to a game, I don't care if it's never over. I'll stay there all night. So that's the next level of all this is now we're into the analytics, and there's got to be some balance there, right? I mean, numbers are baseball. I mean, it has been part of baseball history and how players are measured forever. But it seems like we've swung too much to that and losing sight of the actual playing.
I agree. I agree, and I'm a big. I agree that it's important to know the numbers, um, but when you're basing everything you do on these numbers, it's taking away from the instincts of the game
Yeah,
and the fun of the
instincts. That's a
game.
good word. Yeah.
And I talked to a former assistant GM yesterday, I won't mention his name, but he was in the game for 52 years. And he finally got out of the game when, in one of their meetings, um, there's a baseball lifer, and he saw that a 25-year-old kid had as much say in a trade they were about to make as he did. Someone who'd never played baseball. And that's really, I think, a big problem in the game is that we don't have many of those guys left. And they've all been replaced with these Ivy League guys who are obviously very intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
They don't understand the game. They don't understand the nuances of the game, that you can't measure this guy. You can't measure his heart. You don't know how he's going to perform in certain situations just based on your data.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of that is hurting the game.
Yeah, exactly. The variables in a baseball game that swing from pitch to pitch, at bat to at bat, inning to inning. I mean, and then each time the pressure that's there, that you can't put a number on that. I mean, that's just something that players either going to perform or they're not going to perform. And I get it. I mean, boy, to think that, you're right. These guys are very, very smart. They understand. Numbers are telling you something, but it's not all of it. And somewhere it needs to get back to that equilibrium, because it's not like teams haven't been using numbers. They've been using numbers to measure players since 1860. It's just nothing new. It's just it seems like there's some things being measured now that I mean, what do I care what someone's exit velocity is that flashes up on the screen if it was just like a pop out? I mean, I don't really care. I don't know what that's adding to the game, but anyway.
It's not adding anything, Philip. Unfortunately now those things are actually on the scoreboard now. How hard a ball was hit, what launch angle it was hit at, and maybe some people like that. I don't know. I know traditional baseball people don't like it because it doesn't matter. You either get
it's video game
or you don't. It's a video game,
yeah.
And it's you see if you watch MLB Network and these things, it's DraftKings, it's all these different things now. That's all about it's predicting outcomes now, where it used to be just watch the damn game.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. So that leads you to the one thing I got to cover for you and for people, and like I told you, I admire stories, and I admire especially stories that have that show resolve and fortitude and persevering and adapting and overcoming. It's the Clint Eastwood line from Heartbreak Ridge. You overcome, you adapt, but and forging new paths, right? So this little movement that you've got going, and it's not little anymore. It's become it's in the news now, and it's making television. But tell us what Shigon Nation, what is all that? I mean, I get it because I follow it, but tell us what that is and what it represents and where the name comes from.
Oh, that's funny. Well, I made a video, Philip, in my backyard probably about just over a year ago, and it was just basically imitating something I saw. I think it was on Instagram or something. And I'm on a group text with a couple scouts, and I post this video and on Twitter, and one of my buddies goes, "Man, you got 400 views on your video." I was like, "Oh, that's cool." I didn't think much of it. Then like an hour later, he goes, "Dude, you got 4,000 views." I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I had no idea, right? I'd never really posted a video like that on Twitter. And then I started getting all this negativity in direct messages from people I don't even know, and saying these awful things about me, how terrible I was as a player. I was a Judy. My sons suck at sports. They got cut. And even worse than that, Philip. And really, these guys don't know me very well, Philip. All they did was inspire me to make another video. And the next video, I don't know how many views it has now, but it got over 100,000 views pretty quickly. And at the end of this video, I hit the ball and I said, "She gone." And I didn't think anything of it. It wasn't scripted. None of the videos are scripted. And one of my friends, not Gaetti, who I originally thought was Gary Gaetti, actually, um, says you need to hashtag she gone. And I'm like, okay, what does that even mean? I don't even know what that means. So I started hashtagging she gone.
Mm-hmm.
And then next thing I know, more and more people started following, and I made more videos. And
They're
really,
great.
the word she gone came from was I used to, my favorite, one of my favorite announcers when I played was the White Sox announcers,
Mm-hmm.
Hawk and Wimpy.
Mm-hmm.
And they always had these funny sayings, like
Mm-hmm.
he gone or grab some bench or just funny stuff I thought was pretty clever. And so I just said she gone at the end of this video. And next thing I know, I had the she gone movement. And it's basically a group of people that love baseball and don't like the direction it's heading.
Mm-hmm.
And there are so many things in my mind that are wrong, in a lot of different aspects from the youth sports, um, all the select stuff, showcases, just fleecing parents
Mm-hmm.
to college baseball, where
Oh,
now, you watch the game and, the pitcher can't throw a pitch unless he looks at his wristband.
yeah,
And
the belt flip. The flip thing on the belt cracks me up. That one.
yeah, and then it looks like a fanny pack. And then you have, what's gone wrong in professional baseball, starting in the minor leagues, getting rid of 40 plus
Mm-hmm.
teams and changing the rules and using independent league guys as guinea pigs to see if this will work.
Mm-hmm.
All in the name of speeding the game up because it's too boring. And then the major leagues, with all the data and analytics, there's just so many things that are wrong in the game. And the people in the Shigon movement, the Shigon Nation, love baseball and they don't like what they see. And so it's just really gaining steam. And now I'm traveling all over the country with speaking gigs and things. And that's
Awesome.
kind of really, that's why I started getting on social media. I'd been on Twitter for probably 7 or 8 years, I think when it first came out, and never really used it. And I went and heard this guy speak at a high school. He spoke for 45 minutes about hitting, and at the end of this his talk, I went up to one of my friends. I said, "What did you pay that guy for doing this?" He's like, $5,000. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I was like, "I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
I can do this." And he had a great story, and I have nothing against him. He's a friend of mine. But I'm like, I can do this too. And so I was like, I have to develop a presence on social media
Mm-hmm.
so I get the word out there. And it all started from that, and now it's grown into. I mean, I'm selling T-shirts and
I know.
hats, and it's really, it just really happened accidentally, Philip.
It's awesome. Yeah, the three true outcomes to me. That's not baseball. And to sit around and wait for a home run, a walk, or a strikeout. Yeah, I could see why people would think that's pretty boring. I mean, when I go to a game, I'm a fan, and I love the history of the game. I'm watching everything when I'm there, and there's a lot going on. It's kind of like when you go fishing, right? It might be calm on the surface, but there's something going on all the time under that water, and people just like I said, maybe it's just they want the instant gratification kind of thing, but. Baseball, there needs to be more to the game than just waiting for those three true outcomes. So one of the things I know you got a lot of pushback on a lot of the things that you've been saying, and I get it because people they don't like to be told that this isn't what this isn't what this isn't right or whatever the case may be. But you take on a lot of things that I tell you what, I admire it. What was the fellow his name, the young man's name? Ozuna, was that his name?
Yeah, Gregory
Greg
Ozuna.
Ozuna, man, oh man, that video went viral of him throwing the bat, and um, I get it. People want to have fun, but you took a lot of heat over that, which I thought, wait a minute, that wasn't what you were saying about him, directly. So you had him on your podcast, right?
Yep, yep. It's really a great story.
Yeah.
I was sent that video by two different people. One of them actually a scout and for a professional team. And I posted the video, not thinking anything other than people would view it as uh, over celebrating and potentially doing something dangerous on a field,
Mm-hmm.
throwing a
The
bat, and
bat,
it
yeah.
almost hits the umpire. And I posted it.
Mm-hmm.
And man, I had no idea what the repercussions of this, because now all of a sudden, for the first time in my life,
Yes.
54 years old, now I'm a racist.
Yes.
And I only posted it because he was dark skinned. And I think what a lot of people miss, the people that came after me, because I had to block about 1,000 people on Twitter. Anybody that said
I
anything
bet.
about me being racist, I blocked immediately. I'm not dealing with that
Mm-hmm.
crap.
I
And
don't blame you.
so, but most of the people that came after me were African American. And this kid's Latin.
Mm-hmm.
He's Dominican,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I probably 3 or 4 days there were pretty difficult for me, because man, I was down in the dumps. I was like, I can't believe people suggest that
I
about
bet.
me.
Yeah.
And so I followed Gregory on Twitter, um, in hopes that he would contact me. I had no way of getting in touch with him. And sure enough, he contacted me, he
Cool.
messaged me, and I was so excited. I ran out and told my girlfriend, "Guess who? Guess who messaged me?" And I immediately messaged him back, and he said, I didn't ever consider anything you said about what I did to be racist, and I just wanted to contact you." So I asked him if he was interested in talking, and I called him. He said, "Yeah." So I called him. We had a great conversation for 20
That was an
minutes
awesome interview. Yeah.
and he is just a wonderful guy. And I said, I want to try and help you get an
Mm-hmm.
opportunity in
Cool.
baseball. I had him on my podcast. He texts me almost every day now, tells me about his
Does he really?
progress.
Cool.
Yes, we're friends now.
Awesome.
He told me that his parents watched the interview and said, "You tell Jeff if he ever gets to the Dominican Republic, he has a place to stay."
Awesome.
You know,
Very cool.
so that was really, really a great ending,
Mm-hmm.
or at least
Yeah.
something so negative turned into a positive.
Yeah. No, it's easy how things can get taken out of context if you don't have the perspective of it all. Yeah. And the other one that I really admire you as well, and I think she is awesome. But Lily Martineau, her baseball career is fantastic to follow along with. If nobody knows who she is, they're probably going to know. And there are more girls playing high school baseball and baseball, at not softball, but she can play. She can swing it. She can bring it. She's a darn good player and a lot of fun. And you've been really supportive of her as well.
Yeah, yeah. That's another cool story. I don't really remember exactly how it began. I think her dad contacted me, um, because he's kind of against the select sports stuff, and he was starting his own team. And he asked if I'd be interested in talking to his team.
Wow, cool,
You know, a bunch of 13, 14-year-old kids. So I did a Zoom for about an hour with
awesome.
Lillian's mom and dad and Lillian and all her teammates. And they just kept growing the following of Lillian. And she's such a hard worker and
Yes.
such a cool young lady. And she's inspiring
Mm-hmm. She
so
is.
many girls. I actually got a call the other day from my old teammate, Rusty Greer, who mentioned Lily and said he has an 11-year-old girl who's really good, and wondered if it'd be okay for him to contact Lillian's dad and see if maybe Lily could talk to this little girl. So
Awesome.
she's really inspiring a lot of girls.
That's
And
awesome.
I mean, my hopes for this is, why can't girls keep playing baseball? And even if
Why
they're
not?
not going to play with the boys, why can't we have girls leagues? Why
Mm-hmm.
can't we have girls college baseball?
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand. It's not fair that girls, once they get out of high school, get into high school, have to then switch to softball.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that fair?
Yeah, I don't understand that either. I mean, it doesn't really make much sense. But yeah, her story is it's great, and like you said, it's inspiring. And I love those kinds of stories. I started following her just because of after following you, and I love those kinds of stories. And I think that it's not just inspiring for girls. It should be inspiring to anybody that when you work hard and you have put your mind to something, um, you can get there. You really can, and because she is a darn good player. I watch the videos she puts out, and she can play. And she's what, a freshman now in high school? Is that
Yeah,
right?
she's a freshman.
Yeah,
Freshman. She made her JV team.
yeah, I know.
Uh, but the thing about her too, Philip, is she works at it
Hmm.
every day. She is so passionate about it. And, I don't know if Lillian's ever, where her baseball career is going to go.
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure she's going to be successful, whatever she ends up doing in her life, just because
Absolutely,
of her passion and her work ethic.
absolutely. Well, sir, thank you so much. This was great. I really appreciate you taking the time this morning. I love following you on Twitter. You got a website out there, right?
Yeah, I have Shigon Hitting.
Shigon Hitting.
ShigonHitting.com is where I sell my merchandise. But, my main platform is probably
I love this. Certified
Twitter.
hitting guru.
Yeah, I just declared myself the hitting guru, Philip,
Sure,
because
why
that's what
not?
we do nowadays.
Why not? Everybody else seems to be. So
Yeah, at least I have, at least I have,
a little track record.
yeah, a little track record. I have a baseball card, which which most of these hitting gurus don't have that. So
No, and you know what? When you say that, there's some comments that you have a right to say that. Like I said, you are one of 20 some thousand guys who ever made it to that level. You worked hard to get there. You overcame a lot of obstacles. There are so many things in the way. I mean, what happens if you get drafted onto a team that you just are in a pipeline and you're behind somebody else and you never get that opportunity? There's so many factors that go into all this, and an injury, just in the wrong place at the wrong time. People, I don't think they've lost. I think they don't understand that side of things, and I really appreciate you coming on here talking a little bit about that, about what you got going on. This was a lot of fun, and like I said, I will keep following you. I will recommend anybody that I see to follow you on Twitter. We'll keep this Shigon. We'll build that nation up a little bit.
I appreciate it, Philip. And sorry it took so long for us to
Oh,
get
no worries,
together.
man. You've been
I'm
busy.
glad we did finally.
No, I know you've been busy, and like I said, I just enjoy getting these stories out there to people, and hopefully, you know somebody tells somebody else, and that's how you start a movement, right? You know how it is.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. You have a good rest of the day.
All right, Philip. You too, sir.
All right, bye
Thank
bye.
you.